All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to session 2 of 4 for this professional learning series on arts integration and understanding by design. And again, a reminder to everyone that our guest presenter is Sherry Norfolk, who is a fantastic teaching artist. And I got connected with Sherry through the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. She is one of their arts integration folks. She has an affiliation with them. She does work in predominantly in the St. Louis area, I think, Sherry, right? But you work all over the country and with lots of different schools and lots of different levels on arts integration projects. Just a reminder, everyone, if you wouldn't mind keeping yourself muted until we have an opportunity to have some interaction, that would be great. I'm sure we're going to have some small group opportunity here for this session as well. And if someone is, if Sherry's presenting or if someone is having control of the conversation and you have something that you'd like to add to not interrupt, feel free to drop any of that stuff in the chat. Or if you happen to have links to resources or things that may be pertinent to the conversation that we're having, feel free to drop those in the chat as well. And then I can compile all of that information and get it all out to you by email. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sherry.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So the last time we were together, and some of you weren't together with us, the last time we were together, the first thing we did was kind of define what we thought of as the whole purpose of education. And nobody said it was to memorize lots and lots of lists and names and dates and be able to regurgitate them. Nobody said it was about memorization and the ability to take a test. What you basically said, and not in so many words, was to address the habits of mind, right? I'm going to just share my screen for just a minute. There it is. So people were talking about wanting to build good citizens, you know? They were strongly focused on developing good people who value lifelong learning, are open-minded and flexible. And these are traits that correspond to Costa and Kalich's habits of mind. And those include this list: persisting and thinking and communicating with clarity and precision, managing impulsivity. I'm not sure that the arts can do that, but gathering data through all senses, definitely. Listening with understanding and empathy, creating, imagining, innovating, thinking flexibly, etc. I love finding humor, thinking independently, questioning and posing problems, remaining open to continuous learning. Now, we're talking about integrating the arts into the educational experience so that not only are kids learning about social studies and history and about math and science and language arts, but they are also learning about the different arts at the same time. That's what arts integration is. And so I was looking at these habits of mind, and they reminded me forcibly of the Lincoln Center's Capacitive for Imaginative Learning. I was told that the Lincoln Center Education Group, they were looking for funding. We all are looking for funding all the time. And some of the potential funders said, what can the arts do for kids that regular education can't? Or what can the arts do for kids even better than, or to a greater extent than, the regular subjects can't? And so they developed what they called the Capacitance for Imaginative Learning: noticing deeply, embodying, questioning, making connections, identifying patterns, exhibiting empathy, living with ambiguity. If the arts did nothing else than help us live with ambiguity, they would be really, really important at this time in our lives. ability to live with ambiguity. We've been living with that for the last, 18, 20 months, and continue to do so. Creating meaning, taking action, reflecting and assessing. Now, those are the ones that they listed. I think it was a couple of years ago that they developed these for the first time. That anything they do at the Lincoln Center is constantly under reflection and revision. And I'm told that what they plan to do is also add collaborating to that list. Because the arts teach us to collaborate. You can't be in a band or an orchestra without collaborating with every single person in that room with you. You can't be in a play without collaborating with others around you. Now, it's possible to do visual art without collaborating, but I believe that you are at all times collaborating with your thoughts about how other people are going to respond. So I wanted to share those with you because I think that it's really interesting how parallel those are. And if you aren't already familiar with them, I'm going to put in the chat the link to those. Oh, it looks like somebody already did. Well,
sorry, I didn't mean to steal your lesson plan, Sherry. I just
it's all right.
I saw it in there, and I wanted to make sure that it got in there. So
okay, so that's great. Okay, really, those are the ones I was going to give you right there. I think that they are really, really great because as an artist, as a teaching artist, I can look at that and say, these are the kinds of things that I not only can I do, I have the capacity to address through the arts. These are the things I should be consciously addressing through the arts. So as I develop a lesson plan or a residency, I challenge myself to keep going back to those lists and saying, how am I addressing these things? And how am I doing it through the arts that will complement and collaborate with what's happening in the classroom that I'm working in? So I wanted to bring that up because as we start moving more towards developing arts integrated lessons, I think it's also important to be thinking about not just how can I teach, we don't have enough to think about. So we should be thinking about how can I teach the arts through this? How can I use the arts to teach the curriculum? But how can I also use this to address those capacities and help kids build those capacities? And usually it's so organic that you don't even have to think about it, but you can go back and identify it. Sometimes that's even more satisfying to me. When I first heard about them, I thought, oh, am I doing that? Oh no. And then I started looking at it. Yeah, I am. But I always want to be doing it better. So I'm always thinking more about it. So what we are aiming towards is developing some arts integrated lesson plans. Next time we get together, which is next Wednesday, we would like for you, we're going to give you time to actually share those lesson plans with us. And you probably won't have time to do the whole thing, but at least share it with us and get some peer feedback. I personally find that incredibly useful to find out what others think about what I'm planning to brainstorm to get some feedback. And then the final time that we get together, we would like you to have delivered that arts integrated lesson plan and come back and tell us how it went. And if some things didn't go right, then we can brainstorm ways to make it go right. If things were really, really great and you just want to celebrate it, we'll celebrate it with you. That's the strength of being able to get together and do this stuff. So before I go on blathering, is there any question or comment? Yes, Jessica.
Hi.
Right.
I was thinking a lot this week about our past meeting last week, and I'm struggling with figuring out how to do. I'm an art teacher, so everything's art automatically that I do.
Yeah.
But integrating the other subject matters into my lessons for early learners, pre-K for and kindergarten in particular. You know, they're not writing or reading yet. So I was hoping others in the group might be able to help me get past my block. I'm sure I'm doing it already with some of my lessons, and I just don't know it. But maybe I'm so art focused that I'm unaware of the fact that I am integrating other subject matter into my lessons, and I'm just not paying close enough attention. So maybe if we can hit that at some time in the next hour or so, I'd be grateful. If that's sort of what we're going to end up doing. I'm not sure what we're going to end up doing, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's what we're going to end up doing.
Okay.
Yeah. And what I have found, and I'm just going to put this out there, and then we're going to, yeah. I used to think I wasn't addressing curriculum stuff when I was in kindergarten and pre-K. What I had to do was just bring it to consciousness. What is the curriculum of pre-K? Once I knew what their curriculum was, it was really easy to say, oh yeah, we're counting to 6. And we can make it a little bit more conscious, bring it to consciousness and do it through the arts by, as we're acting out the story, we're going to take 6 giant steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to count the giant steps as we do it. So the characters tiptoe 5 times. It's bringing it to consciousness. But what we need to do, obviously, is go around and find out what each person's background is. Kathleen told us earlier about her work, and I think that you two need to meet because it just sounds like what the two of you have in common is perfect. So we're gonna we heard from Jessica Lopez, and I want her to hear from Kathleen and everyone else to hear from her. Kathleen, will you tell us all what you told Jason and me earlier?
Sure. I don't know. I'm not sure how mind bending this is, but I did start out as an art teacher. And then when my daughter was, I stopped doing everything when I was pregnant and had my daughter, and I stayed home until she went to school. And then there were so few art jobs around here, I ended up getting a classroom certificate. And so I've been a classroom teacher for 23 years or more. And so I do a lot of art in my room with the curriculum. And that's kind of what I said. And so I've written down, art teacher lessons. My daughter is also an art teacher. And so she does a lot of stuff with pre-K and K, and it is shape oriented, or so I think a lot of the math kind of skills does fall into place with that. For me, it's usually demonstrating ways to demonstrate knowledge about probably mostly science and literature for me in my classroom. And then I tend to do a lot of art stuff in my room just as mental therapy. We're always creating some sort of art in the room just because I like to do it and I like to see my kids do art. And it's just a good, a time when we're together doing something that's not related, but just art related. But I will certainly think about you and can maybe give more advice. I don't know if I can give you any more advice than you probably already have.
So, thank you, Kathleen. Just real quick, I totally understand what you're saying. And I know that I'm integrating other subject matter. I know I am, but I've never really brought it up to consciousness. I think one of my issues is that I work in an environment where curricula is not really shared with specialists. We're kind of on our own island. I have actually no idea what the pre-K teachers are teaching, or the kindergarten teachers, or the first grade teachers, or the second grade teachers. I have zero knowledge. I'm never included in any meetings or anything. So I think that that's a big driving issue in me feeling like I'm in the dark. And I think I'm doing the right thing. I think I'm on the right track. I just am never told I am. So so this is really good for me to be a part of this group. Okay.
And I'd like to suggest, Jessica, and to all of you, that I think that's definitely part of my intent of having Sherry here to work with us on this series, and to have future series coming up for the rest of the year, is to not only reinforce the idea that you all have the capacity. You're either doing this now or you have the capacity to do it. A lot of this too is figuring out how to invite yourself to the table. How do you get yourself informed and integrated in what the pre-K and K and 1 and 2 teachers, what your other specialists are doing, or non-special, like the classroom teachers and other specialists, what are they doing? How can you initiate those conversations and build that kind of collective capacity together to do this? And I'm sure, Sherry, you could jump right in and talk about the experiences that you've had in working with teachers in trying to help build those bridges.
Yeah, one of the things I find really, really useful is to ask if I can observe for 15, 20 minutes. Because I can sit down with teachers and say, as a teaching artist, I'm going to be working with the teachers, so they always have a lesson, a planning period, which I find sort of kind of maybe a little bit useful. But so recently I'm working with a bunch of pre-K and kindergarten teachers, and they told me blah, 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 what they thought that they were going to be teaching. I sat there and observed in their classes. Nobody had said they were doing rhyming words. Every single one of them was doing rhyming words when I was in the room. Nobody had said they were doing the letter 6. Every single one of them was doing the letter 6 when I was in the classroom. Not a single person had told me they were working on characters, especially main characters. But one of the classrooms was. And it turned out, when I asked the other teachers, is this something you'd like for me to talk about? They said, oh yeah, that's what we're working on right now. So it's that observation gives you a chance to look around the room and, oh, they've got that up there. They must be talking about rhyming words now. It looks like they're up to the letter G. And so that observation, talking with them at lunchtime, stop them in the corridor, look what's in their hand and say, wow, what's that for? That's, to me, it's that informal kind of thing that helps me figure out what they really want me to teach.
And part of this is a big culture shift in our schools too. And everyone's, historically, a lot of teachers are very protective of their spaces. They're protective of their lesson plans, what they do with their students. And part of this, Jessica, and everybody, is going to be trying to break down those barriers a little bit in terms of people feeling threatened that the arts teacher is going to take over teaching multiplication tables, and they're gonna mess it up because they don't know how to do it because they're not a math teacher. Well, no, it's about how can we all collectively make the learning experience more engaging and deeper for students at all levels. And that part of that is going to be that culture shift. And this is just the first step of many of figuring out how to get, like I said earlier, how to get you to the table to have the conversation and to be able to disarm people in a way that makes it so that the collaboration is coming from the right place and everybody understands everyone's motives, which again is to make make the learning deeper and more lasting and more meaningful for students.
Yeah, I do read the standards, which are really great reading, but I try to look at them and say, do I recognize myself? But it's better. I can recognize it better if I'm actually in the classroom or looking at what they have up on the walls or on bulletin boards in the hallways. That's where I can make those connections. Lisa, yes.
There we go. Hi.
Hi.
In the 4th and 5th grade school that I work in, I just asked for a copy of the curriculum and got it. Wasn't it's different than having a conversation or seeing, but at least I could kind of see topics that were being covered. And one instance where, so we do, I'm an art teacher as well, and we do clay in the classroom. So we did clay suns, and I started that out by asking, we did it after they learned about the sun in science, and asked them what they knew about the sun. So they gave me all their facts about the sun and how far away it was, and it's a star. Then we talked about the sun in different cultures, and then created the sun. So it was about art, but it led with, you know, all that they had learned about the sun. And so it's and at least in my experience, if I go in and say, hey, we're going to do this project that ties into this, they're open to that. But when I word it like, oh, I'd like to do some cross-curricular stuff, then there's kind of a no to that. But so it's sort of going in a different door, I think. But so that's my experience.
Yeah, I agree with you on how it's worded is really important. Well, last year when I was pushing in on a cart, the classroom teachers would stay in the room during their prep period, and unwillingly would end up, you know, being an observant of me teaching. And so many of them, their attitudes towards me changed after observing me teach. I wasn't just this person that was in the building 2 or 3 days a week. I work at 2 different schools, but I was a real teacher to them now. And they had observed me, you know, talking about, you know, literacy and math, you know, bringing those in a little bit, and habits of work and how to clean up and how to be kind to each other. They actually observed me touching on all of those. And I noticed that all of a sudden everybody was treating me differently. And it felt great because all of a sudden, you know, this little clique of teachers was noticing me as a teacher too. I think classroom teachers are really overwhelmed in general, and to add another person to their list that they have to work with is not something that they're really willing to do all the time. But I don't know. Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
And there still is a perception that what we do is less, it's easier, it's the fun class, we don't really have our own curriculum. There's still this perception that it's so easy, even though we see every single child in school. They have a lot on their minds. They don't see every child in the school. So I struggle with that, but but yes, I think there's still that perception, and that maybe you were hitting up against that, but then once they got to see you in action, then they realize that, yeah, it's a real academic subject as well. So
Yeah, and you know, classroom teachers and the arts teachers, we're not really used to collaborating. You know, we're used to going into our own little space and doing our own little thing. And so it's taking our brains and going and making us think a little bit differently, and maybe definitely approaching our work a little bit differently. So these teachers that I was talking about, who had not told me anything about really what they were studying, the one thing they had told me was we were fall, autumn, which by the way, we still don't have. It's still green here and I'm really annoyed. But I know you guys have these gorgeous colors and we have green. I will hush about that. But it's really hard to explain to kids what autumn is when nothing is changing color. However, they told me we were doing autumn and I said, okay, fine. So I figured out what stories I was going to do. And then I saw, oh, they're doing rhyming words. I can address rhyming words, whether they tell me they're doing it or not. They just proved it to me. So I integrated it into the lesson plan. And like I said, we were counting to 6. So I just went ahead and integrated it into the lesson plan. And then they're required to be in the room while I'm there. So they noticed I'm counting up to 6. We are doing rhyming words. We're also learning about characters, main characters, and other characters, which, by the way, there were 6 of. We acted out the story. All of a sudden, I've been in the classroom 3 times in all of those classes now, and all of a sudden the teachers are saying, oh, this is so good. What if we did this? Sometimes you just have to prove to them it works. You know, they're seeing their kids respond, and some kids responding in things they've never seen kids respond that way before after only 3 half-hour sessions. And all of a sudden they're saying, how can we work together on this? Can you teach me how to do this? Can we do this together? So sometimes it just takes you pushing it and saying, you know, here's how I'm going to do it. And then they start to see how it changes. Does that start to make any sense? So we started going around, and what I'd really like to do is kind of, if we talk about what we do, and then maybe we can start to make some matches between 2 or more people who would like to work together to write out and to develop some arts integrated lessons. So we've heard from Kathleen, and we've heard from Jessica and from Lisa. And by the way, that does a tic-tac-toe on my board, but probably not on yours. Barbara, would you tell us about your work? We can't hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, we have a lot, quite a few kids out right now that were close contacts, and we've been in the fear of having to go remote. So we've been, I've been integrating technology into my classroom. And for instance, like today I had kindergartners. Now kindergartners, of course, we know can't read very well, but they can find the icons and things like that. So so I've been we've been practicing since the beginning of school how to find my Google Classroom and how to integrate that. And we use a Cami extension. I don't know if you're all familiar with Cami extensions. No. Well, what that is like it's really, really useful. You make PDF files and you put it in your assignment as a PDF file, and then Cami has a little toolbar, and you can you use these toolbars to create to write on this paper. So they can write on it using a text box. They can write on it using a drawing tool. They can write on it with shapes. So it's quite a big thing for kindergarten. And of course, the classroom teacher doesn't have a whole lot of time to work with that. But yet, as I am a music teacher, what I do to try to put it as a music related thing, and to help whatever she's doing, we're doing Halloween theme. So we're doing Halloween. We like I have it made out to them so that they see my I give them 4 characters, and we're having 4 boxes, and each character has a sound, and they're doing like Halloween found sounds, like how many sounds do you hear in cat? And so like they're trying to sound it out, cat, and I said, Joe's just gonna tap your arm, cat, how many sounds? And oh yeah, and then they're getting it. So I give them these icons. Well, what I with these Halloween rhythms, and then we clap the rhythms like cat, bat, shh for ghost, and stuff and so forth. And what I noticed, they learned how to make 4 boxes. So today, this is something I was very surprised I did. They learned how to do shapes, so that this works with what they're doing in kindergarten. They're working with shapes, and now they're learning how to make shapes using this extension. And inside the shapes, we are there to draw a Halloween character of some sort. And this is really fudgy with kindergarten. And the older students, it's a lot easier and stuff, but that's how I do things like that. So I know for like last year, my first graders, the teacher was stressed out on tying shoes. So we found a song that was on time. Yeah, I know. Huh? So we found a song for tying shoes. We practiced a song, and then we pre-practiced tying our shoes, and then we can make it, and then they can create their own rhythms in the background to the song. And while some are tying their shoes, they have the rhythm. So as a lot of life skills, I try to integrate life skills into my my classroom, as well as like my fourth graders are learning time. So we develop, so as they're working with the time, the analog clock, because they have to sign out before they go to the bathroom, they have to sign back in when they come back. So kids don't know how to read an analog clock. So we incorporate how telling the time and how the second hand goes with the beats, and then we watch the beats, and there's 60 for a quarter note. So I mean, I'm doing things like that. It's rough, but I feel like I'm scattered. Because I went around, I talked with all the teachers on different things that they're doing and how I can integrate what they're doing into what I'm doing. And this is something that, like Jessica was saying, they're not used, we're like on our own island. And so, but I try to have some level of communication with them in the morning when they're all out in the hallway, and I say, I hear you're doing this. I can see how I can follow up with that with my class, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's what I'm doing anyway.
But I really feel like it should also be a goal of the administration to facilitate this type of communication. And more often than not, I do not see 1 minute of this, 1 minute of their time spent towards creating this sort of communication. I feel like the administrations are so overwhelmed. I mean, my principal's teaching math now because nobody's applying for the math teacher job. So, I mean, people are overworked right now, but pre-COVID, I felt like there was nobody facilitating this. There were meetings being created. We were just told to stay in our rooms, get done what you need to get done, and leave the classroom teachers. That's the environment that's created. I wasn't told that, but that's what the environment feels like.
Hey, Jessica, like my administration, we'd be going through our evaluation system. And I remember last year when I was talking with her, one of the standards that part of our evaluation was bringing things to your colleagues and stuff. And she said, it'd be really nice if you could work on with your colleagues on how you can integrate some of your stuff with what they're doing. I'm like, yeah, that would be nice. But I mean, that's a lot of work to do K through 12. And
you know what, though, I'll tell you, Barb, and you are in a unique position, and some of you are in being pre-K-12 or K-12 span to be the arts teacher or the music teacher or whatnot. That's a big challenge. What we're finding at the department, Jessica, to your point, is that this needs to be a grassroots effort. This is going to be teachers knocking on each other's doors, figuring, and you often don't get common planning time to do this. That is a challenge. That's a significant challenge. Until we are able to show, and we either being arts teachers or we being classroom teachers or we collectively, when we can show the benefits of the work that we're doing to not only take other curricular items from other content areas into our classroom, but have ours show up in theirs as well. Until we can show that benefit, it's going to be hard to get the paradigm to shift on that. And but we're finding that it really is a grassroots situation. And I know that Sarah has done quite a lot of work in her school at Sedgwick of showing arts integration, the positives of that. So I know, Sherry, you want to hear from everybody, and I'm hoping that maybe Sarah can speak to that to flesh that out a little bit more.
Yes, Sarah, please.
Well, I don't know how much I can flush it out, but I will say one of the things here is I came here as an art. Well, actually, someone on the school board asked me apply for the job and I was an artist, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I'd rather gnaw my arm off than work with kids, but it's the best thing I've ever done. But so I do I do a lot of hands-on art, and I'm a 3D artist. So a lot of this stuff, I mean, you should see my room. It's kind of embarrassing. But the one thing that has helped me is I asked if we could have a STEAM program, and Yo-Yo Ma, I think at the Kennedy Center, was instrumental in starting STEAM, where it's the A in STEM. And that has been it's just been wonderful, because what it's allowed me to do is I work with the other teachers. My STEAM class is that teacher is in the room, and we plan our curriculum together. And I'm really loose about what I consider STEAM. Like sometimes it'll be an ELA thing, sometimes it'll be history, sometimes it'll be science, sometimes it'll be like all of them smushed together. But one of the things that I find is that I ask if I can have the science book or the whatever they're doing, and then I read it, or the chapters that they're doing in their classes before I design what I'm going to do. Because like they started this cool thing this year called FOSS, at least the younger kids. It's a science program, and everything, they have their curriculum, but then they have all these experiments. And so like the first day I was here, I went into a class with an experiment, and they had already done it in the FOSS program. So if I can read what they're doing, I can augment with other things, or like, and I don't want to talk too much, so go like this if I'm talking too much. But like one thing we're doing this year, which I'm like super psyched about, is in the upper grades, they're in their earth science year, and so they're doing a lot with water. And the young in third grade, they're doing a lot with water, and in the upper grades, they're reading A Long Walk to Water, which is about a South Sudanese boy, one of the lost boys. And so we did a whole thing in STEAM about our water use and how much we use, and we graphed it compared to other countries, compared to the rest of America. But we also talked about not having fresh water, and how we're relatively fortunate. We go to the tap and we drink water. So in art, as a service project, we're making peace flags that we're selling to raise money for building a well in South Sudan, Africa. So you can see around my room, I have peace flags everywhere, but it's integrating what we're learning about water and water usage and the rest of the world with the social studies. And we're doing math because we're doing graphing. And I mean, it is a lot of work, but teachers at our school are really keen on, adding, like sometimes they'll come in and say, hey, I'm doing this, we're studying Hinduism. Could you figure out something to do that would be sort of an arts part of Hindu? Well, that's pretty easy, but you know what I mean? So I think, and I know all of you guys do this as well, but I think sometimes it just takes like saying, like just going into the class and saying, hey, over the summer, can I read the books that you're going to read in ELS? And then when you do that, you get all these cool ideas, or not so cool ideas, but that can really integrate.
Yeah. And
So,
what you're saying is basically we have to reach out, and read the curricula or read the books that the kids are reading. And so it's a little bit of extra work, but what happens is that work becomes so much more meaningful for you and for the kids and for the other teachers. It becomes really inspiring for the children. So you make that extra reach, and then all of a sudden it starts being really meaningful and relevant. because through the arts, we can make everything meaningful and relevant and connect one to another. Thank you, Sarah.
And
Yes.
just one other thing. This is another thing I found. Like at first, it's like, oh man, I don't really know that much about, like, I don't know, pick something like ions, but eighth graders don't know that much either. So, I mean, I can read their book and I can pretty much figure it out. So it's not like I need to be a science teacher to do it. I just sort of have to know what an eighth grader would understand.
Yeah, I can do pre-K math pretty well. That's about as far as I can go with it. But a lot of times teachers will ask me to address a topic that I know basically nothing about. But as you said, you know, what fifth and sixth graders learn about tectonic plates and destructive and constructive ways of changing the earth, I can learn pretty quickly. And then I can find ways to really to integrate what they need to learn into the art that I want them to learn. And so I find it really exciting when those connections happen. It's just like you go, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Unfortunately, it happens at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I can't sleep for the rest of the night, but that's the way my brain works. Marie, we haven't heard from you, and then Alexis, and then Suzanne, and then we're going to take a break.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Wow. Well, I subbed art down in Deer Isle and Brooklyn when I lived on the island, and I taught art in Massachusetts for 20 years. But here I've been in ELL EdTech, and I was remote last year. So in order for me to, every subject the kid in ELL, English language learner, is learning, I have to know about. Technology in Google Classroom makes it possible for me to ask and to even be attached to the Google Classroom so I can see all the assignments. I can see what they're learning. I can see where I was working, and I had to do K through high school. But it was just fascinating to use visual art for literacy and what's called academic language, which is listening, writing, speaking, and reading. But now they have this new buzzword called project-based learning.
Mhm.
Hello, that's art. You know, so I mean, I'm kind of horrified to hear that there are still teachers in this 21st century that are feeling isolated, separated. It's horrible. So anyway, so I found ways to I just ask questions. Even remotely, I just kept asking questions, asking everybody questions. I went to every staff meeting on Zoom, and I had to do, and I was itinerant too. Before COVID, I had to go to 4 different schools. But the best part was the relationships I got to build with other staff, with the custodian, with the school secretary. These are important people. They really hold the keys to the kingdom. And I would ask for help, tell me what you're doing. What would you like to see happen here? Or what do you think about this? And then I would ask the children to teach me. Like you're talking about tectonic plates. I had a young girl, Mexican American, doing that last year, first year of high school. And the language is very confusing for someone whose primary language is not English. There's a lot of long words. Also at Thomas College, there was a free full day with contact hours convention on 3D printing, and teachers from this state presented STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And I saw a kindergarten teacher printing out the drawings of the kindergarten kids. It was fantastic. And like Sarah, I'm a 3D person too. I get a kick out of looking at her fingers, which are all stained with ink or paint or something. But anyway, it's just been a great learning experience for me, because I am grown up now, but my parents immigrated to this country. So the cultural relativity that the arts offer, art is a language and it's universal. So what they couldn't say in words, we found other ways. I mean, I used the vocabulary of color mixing to start a conversation about that. And anyway, it was pretty amazing, even in COVID, because these are English language learners, the smaller class size was good for them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not true that everybody didn't learn. And this is in a rural dairy farm part of the state where these kids had nothing. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. And I'm not in that district, but I will be going part-time to school closer to home instead of driving all over the state of
Congratulations.
Maine. The district I was in was, really rough in the winter. So I was there 3 years, but I had a wonderful supervisor who also felt like this is an ELL teacher. And this is reality today. There's more refugees coming. There's more language, and learning about other cultures, being curious about other cultures it's a great opportunity for not just kids, but for adults. But anytime I want to learn something, when I want to learn something, I ask a kid. That's how we played Scrabble Go. I played Scrabble Go and could sing Happy Birthday in Mandarin Chinese. That's what I learned during.
Good for you, boy. I've spent a lot of time trying to understand anything in Mandarin. Thank you. Alexa, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm teaching elementary art pre-K through 5 in Standish and Leamington at MS 86. And I started in 2019, so I had a few months of normalcy till everything changed. So it's been interesting trying to gauge like what normal is, because I hear a lot about what normal is and then I don't really even know. But from what I've gotten in the last few years and like what I'm doing now and what I've gotten from like just the pandemic and teaching online is I'm definitely using like technology more, and I've been going outside with the students and teaching things outside, which is like connected with science, like things just like I did I put this in like the Padlet, but I did a photography unit where they all had their iPads. So we talked about light and we connected it with like Monet's paintings of studying light. And I just had them take a object and put it outside and take a picture of it multiple times a day. And we talked about how the shadows changed, how colors looked, and how the weather changed, how the photo looked. And it was just some really good discussions with things like that. And we did just like drawing scavenger hunts where I like printed out, like find an acorn and they all have sketchbooks. So we go outside or find something that's symmetrical and check it off and try to draw a little thumbnail sketch of it. So I've been doing more of those sort of things. this year. And what am I doing right now? I'm trying to think what I'm doing right now. I'm doing a Chihuly glass like unit where they're learning about glass making, which I mean, I can't do that in my classroom, but I've been talking about that, and they've been watching just the process of how it is. And that's all I do. A lot of it, even though I'm definitely not a science teacher at all, a lot of it connects to science. And
What are those organic connections that we look for?
yeah. And I definitely feel in the same boat of like, because I'm at multiple schools, no one knows where I am. Some days I'm just like popping in and out, it feels like, and I just never feel like I have a chance to connect with these teachers. And I am hoping to, like, there's some newer teachers who like came to me, and I was like, oh, cool. Like, someone wants to talk to me about this. So that was really nice. But I feel like it was a lot of, there's teachers that have been there for such a long time that like they have their own groove, and it is kind of intimidating, like coming to them and like saying like, hey, like, you want to do something, like, it's like a little intimidating. But as I have gone to these schools, and I feel like now I'm starting to just even get to know some people, because it's been like we were online all last year basically. So some people I never even talked to in person until like the beginning of this year. So I think that this has been really helpful hearing everyone's perspectives though, because like again, I haven't really like talked to many other art teachers or heard anything about what everyone else is doing. So that's kind of what's going on with me.
Yeah, and I don't think we ever connect to every single teacher.
Yeah.
Start with the one that wants to work, or that there's an organic connection, and then maybe that'll turn into that whole grade level, and then maybe that'll start gathering other teachers' attention, and they'll say, wow, I want to do that too. But starting small is okay, planting that seed and then seeing how it grows. That's science day for me. I just did science. Okay, Suzanne, let's hear from you. And then I did not mean to ignore Jessica Hamilton.
So my name is Suzanne Goulet. I'm one of the, I describe myself as the traditional, digital, and emerging art and design educator here at Waterville High School. I look at all my students as contemporary artists, and I tell them that they are. And so that way and I try to do a lot also of sharing contemporary artwork that's existing today, so that they can see that art is not just tempera paint and markers. We talk pastels. And so one of my favorite things to do is to actually, I look forward every year to about this time of year when the new MacArthur Fellows are announced, and show them some of the amazing stuff that people are doing. So either incorporating sound or light or text into art, or architectural design. And sometimes some of this design work is also incorporated into social components. And I keep telling my students about how Mount Blue High School has had a MacArthur Fellow. And my goal is, I hope for them, my hope for them is that they are the first person from Waterville High School to be a MacArthur Fellow. And then of course I have to explain what MacArthur Fellow is. And then they're like, oh man, that would be awesome. So no strings attached, here's all the money, do whatever it is you want to do. So, but so some things that I've done, I've worked with our green team, where we recycle clay, and then so we go through that process, which of course is always fun, and create pots, and then put in plants in those pots, and then students get to adopt the plants. And part of that is, for some students, it's the first thing that they've ever had to take care of. And when they come back each week and they're like, my plant's still alive. My plant's still alive. And they're like, wow. And so one of the things that the Green Team Advisor and myself have talked about is how can we do this a little bit bigger, and really focusing on the fact that, you know, this is a stewardship opportunity. And then I'll come back to that in a moment. I do a lot of tech integration, trying to show also, I've worked with the STEAM Collaborative and have developed some units and lessons and mentored some other people and incorporating STEAM principles. I have, so some work that I've done is also having students in an investigative, a scientific mindset of looking at like glaze explorations and working in ceramics. You know, so what happens when we do test tiles, and so what happens, and so incorporating chemistry, incorporating the 3D printer and 3D design, and creating tools for students to work in 3D printing. And then also looking at, as far as ceramics goes, the world, you know, all the ceramics surrounds us, you know, from insulators to a variety of products. I would say that here at Waterville High School, so a new teacher to our school put it very nicely, where she's like, I feel like I'm back at my high school in the 80s, because things, I wouldn't say that they have not evolved. We have ghettos. So there's the science ghetto and the history ghetto and the world language ghetto. And so trying to work collaboratively with my colleagues, I've been here since 90. I keep trying. I'm like, oh, you know, let's do a sketchbook thing. Well, finally, you know, COVID, a lot of people are like, I'm out of here. So well, we have a lot of new educators. And so there's some new teachers to the school who are not new teachers to the profession. And so for instance, one teacher who came to the school was the only teacher on her floor at her old school that was not a national board certified teacher. Here at Waterville, we have no national board certified teachers. There are 2 of us working on it. And that really, just that whole mindset of being a reflective educator, and I would say is lacking here as far as how everything comes together. So coming back, so everything you have said, same thing, just keep going forward, see what happens, people coming to you. It is, I would say, this year, if anything, it may not be through STEAM, but there's a huge need for social emotional learning, and especially empathy. I mean, that, if anything I learned through COVID is how much schools are needed. You know, we had students come in who were just like, oh, here's a bike on the bike rack that's not locked. I need to get somewhere, and just take it. You know, not really thinking about the whole sense of property or empathy for someone else. And so I've been trying to work through the whole critique process about trying to talk about empathy and trying to, so I'm trying to also, because it's school-wide need, and I'm trying to use this opportunity to show how the arts can help our students. So whether or not we're critiquing artwork, or we're critiquing something that somebody did. And so how does that process work? It's everywhere. And I love how Sarah just, you know, it's like, oh, okay, wait, I can do it. It's like that whole thing that, you know, as educators, that, you know, how we look for the use of metaphors and how to connect with each student. So what is it that, you know, okay, so what is it you like? You like grilled cheeses? And like, no, I don't like grilled cheeses. I'm like, really? Like, who doesn't like grilled cheeses? Okay, so what do you like? Okay, do you like any kind of cheese? All right, so like, will you just keep digging and trying to find that connection? And that really is what this is about, so that we can help students go deeper. One thing about the collaborative is that they talk about a continuum. And so ideally we want, you know, to have a marriage where we are both working together, but we know that that's not always going to be the case. So sometimes, you know, we're the chicken wire holding up everything. And sometimes, you know, we're working in unison, and sometimes we might come out ahead. But it's a journey, and we're just gonna have to keep going for it. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Jessica Hamilton Jones.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Jessica Hamilton Jones. Jessica Jones makes it shorter. I'm a colleague of Suzanne's. Actually, we're both at the Waterville High School, but I am in the department, a different department, and on a different campus. I'm at the Alternative High School. So I've seen Suzanne's struggles, so I know reaching out in the high school is hard. I'm fortunate that I don't have her same issues because I'm in a smaller building with only a few teachers. But at the Alternative High School, we're basically I'm doing a lot of art therapy. Anyway, I never studied art therapy too much, a little bit, but I'm finding art therapy is really what my curriculum ends up focusing on. I just wanted to say a couple things. One was that idea of starting small, when you see that frustration, that I love that Sarah built sounds like a whole new course on STEAM, which is an excellent way to do things. Just doing it yourself, people are ultimately going to see that our teachers are doing this all the time, whether we're conscious of it or not. And then starting small, I just made a connection with the English teacher this year. There was a grant that was that we could all apply for this year in the school district. And so we kind of did it separate but together, where he wanted to do a thing on memoirs, using and hopefully bringing in authors who write about what it was like growing up in certain areas of Maine. And then so for me, my grant was to do visual journals, bookmaking, and that kind of thing, that the students can take what the English teaches them to write their own memoir is his goal. So then they can illustrate it on my end, was sort of, I'm hoping, where we'd all sort of mesh and end up figuring things out. And it brought in also like paper making. We could go to the old mills. It brought in history, the history of paper making in the mills, and we could go visit a mill, or we could go visit Sappi, or I don't know, factories and stuff. So I'm hoping our grant comes through. We'll see. And again, that was just sort of trying to connect with one teacher, and it was a thin thread, and we don't have much time. So that's what we worked with, where we kind of wrote it separate but together.
Mhm.
And then the only other thing I wanted to say was my background was I used to work as an educator for the L.C. Bates Museum. And my job was to teach kids about various natural history. It was a natural history museum. And I'll never forget the one moment when I realized how much the arts help students make that connection, was when I had to read kids. We went to the elementary school, and we went to all schools all around Maine when I worked in that job. And we did elementary school age. I think we did second graders and fourth graders. And we had to read a book called Bugs' Butts. And it was all the different kinds of butts that bugs have and what they can do with their butts. And the kids loved that book so much. And then we always followed it with an art project. And after learning different things about insects and their various body parts and how many arms and hands, and we tried to make them walk like bugs and do all these things, the drawings that came out looked incredible. Like, it wasn't like a second grader's quick drawing of a bug. He had all the things in the part and the butt and the arms. And I just knew then, like, even though I don't know a lot about all these different subjects, for an art teacher, it's like being a, what is it, the knowledge of all, master of none, kind of ends up what I feel like a lot of times. But just offering up those little extra bits of information to your students helps them to make the connection. And when then they draw it or they act it out and use the arts, it really, really does make a difference for kids. So for the teachers that were like, I'm not even conscious of it, we're bringing in just one little bit of extra information about something, and those kids are going to get it. And then when they can draw it or make a song about it or whatever, it means so much. And I have a son who's autistic, and when he was young, he couldn't speak, but he could tap out the tune of ABC. So even though he couldn't speak, he had the rhythm to do ABCs. And so what we're doing is so important. It's naturally there for kids to learn that way. And as teachers, we have to just sort of try the best we can to make those connections on our own. Even if we're on an island, you just do it on your own. And then if not, hopefully you'll find a colleague, even if it's one, to connect with. So I love this program. I think this is awesome. And it's so great to see what other teachers are doing. And this is awesome. So I also, at the alternative school, I don't just do art. I do a yearbook journalism class. I'm the worst speller in the world, so good luck with that. But thank God for spell check. But I'm teaching them about journalism and how to talk to people, how to do an interview, stuff like that, and make eye contact. And I'm also doing a sort of an environmental, green, independent living sort of thing. So we do environmental stuff. So I was the art and specials teacher. So we do a little bit of everything anyway. So
Fabulous.
so anyone could do it if I could do it.
I am so inspired and excited by all of the projects that you all are working on, the kids that you're working with. There's just a wonderful array of work being done, and I just feel that there's all this impending work. It's coming. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, and while we're breaking, think about what you heard and who you want to connect with, because you might find somebody in this group. I mean, I see lots of people in this group I want to work with. Think about somebody in this group that you could pair up with, or work in groups of 3 or even more to develop some ideas towards arts integration. Going to take a 5-minute break. So that'll be, I don't know if my clock's the same as yours.
I'm thinking 4:47.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So-
See you at 4:47.
Perfect. Excellent.
Look at it.
All right, welcome back, everybody. I know you didn't want to come back. You're so into it, which is so exciting. That's awesome. But we did want to just do a wrap up for today to be sensitive to everybody's time. This is time flies when you're having fun, and it doesn't seem like it's been 2 hours that we've been together for today. But Sherry's got a little bit of an outline of what we want to have you do between now and next week, and then how next week is going to roll. And then we'll say adieu for the week, and we'll see you next week. So go ahead, Sherry.
Wait, one moment. Jason, did you see that you still need to grant us access to that document?
Oh, nope, I didn't see that. So
Okay.
I will work on that. And if I get it in the next 90 to 120 seconds, I'll pop it in there. Or you guys can keep trying that link, and I will make sure that I change the permissions on it. So thank you, Suzanne, for letting me know. Go ahead, Sherry. Sorry.
Okay. So between now and when we see you next week, we'd like you to develop your own perspective on whatever lesson plan you got or topic that you all have come up with. If you want to work with someone else to create a lesson plan between the two of you, that's great. It's also just fine for each person to come up with their own individual take on it, which is more what we kind of expect. We are going to want to see some kind of outline or write-up of what you're doing. And then when we get together next week, each person will have about 8 minutes to present their lesson plan, maybe demonstrate a little bit of it, talk us through the rest of it, and then have about 5 or 6 minutes for feedback from the group. Peer feedback is really, really valuable. Okay, does that sound good?
And nobody stress on this. It doesn't have to be a fully 100% baked idea. It can be something that you're starting with. And frankly, I think that's going to make for some really fantastic conversation and debrief and evaluation, which is if you get stuck somewhere along the way, where might you go? We're going to use that hive mind mentality to really look at what you've created and try to help you figure out how to connect some dots that maybe you're not sure yourself how to connect.
Hey, Jason,
Yes, sir.
I have a question. I mean, I always get really into these things and they're like 4 sessions and then boop, it's done. If there's any way, I would love if we took this group and then 3 months down the road, even if it's just a one time, and if we got CEUs, then it would encourage people to come, or whatever those things are called.
Mhm.
It would encourage people to come, and then we can hear what, you know, that like Kathleen did this thing, and 3 months from now she can say, well, it worked fabulously, but this part added to it, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah, for sure. We can definitely do that ourselves, and we can see if Sherry's schedule permits for her to come back and hear about how all that works as well. Yeah, absolutely. We will definitely make that happen, Sarah, for sure.
Thank you, Sarah, because I'm going to be so curious about what happens next with these ideas. I can't wait to hear from you. So I'm not sure you have my email address. And so I'm going to put that in chat, and then I should have done that quite a while ago, but I didn't.
And you all know how to reach me, and now you'll know how to reach Sherry in the interim. So if you have any issues or concerns along the way, I changed the permissions on the folder, so you should be able to get in there now and pop your documents in there. And yeah, so we're a little over time, but I really do appreciate everybody's time today, and I look forward to seeing what you create this week and what you can share and how that hive mind can work to help expand our horizons even more next week.
Hooray.
Awesome. Thank you all, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.
Have a great week.